Apologize. Medford City Council, the 8th regular meeting, Medford, Massachusetts. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Del Russo.
Present.
Council Falco.
Present.
Council Knight. Councilwoman Kern.
Present.
Vice President Marks.
Present.
Council Scarpelli.
Present.
President Caviola.
Present. 6 members, if you could mark Councilor Knight here. All 7, please stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 17-078. Petition for common victual license by Mike Pinnick, 369 Broadway, Everett, for Boston's Best Ice Cream, doing business as Crystal at 49 High Street, Medford, Mass. Councilor Scarpelli, Chairman of the Licensing Committee. If you could, how do you find the application?
If I can we ask the
petitioner
comes
forward?
Hi, how are you?
Fine, and you?
So exactly, what will you be serving in this establishment?
Caribbean, Haitian, and Spanish food.
Okay, it's not ice cream though.
It's not ice cream.
Okay.
I currently actually own a ice cream parlor in Cambridge Galleria. And,
Should we be serving oxtail?
hopefully, hopefully. But yeah, I wanted to do some type of different change, and because I've been a resident of Medford for over 5 years, 6, 7 years.
Oh, it's a great idea.
Wanted to, extend.
Your hours of operations?
Right now it would be 7 to about 9 o'clock.
Okay. You know, if it's I believe it's 11, you have to ask.
11, after 11.
After 11, you have to ask as you move forward.
Okay.
You'll have to ask for a special permit. But no, everything seems to be in order. This is, I know, with the growing Haitian community, Jamaican community, I think that it's wonderful food. I'm a connoisseur of food, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so everything looks like it's in order, Mr. President. I move to approve and.
Thank you, Councilor Scarpelli. Councilor Della Russo.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You had your letter.
I apologize, sir.
All right. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much, and I'd like to thank Mr. Pinnick for coming here this evening. This would be maybe a second foray into operating a business here in the community of Medford. He ran a very successful business down in South Medford for a number of years and was displaced by a fire, Mr. President.
That's correct.
Yeah, he had a great reputation as a business owner in the community, and it's with my wholehearted support that I second Councilor Scarpelli's motion for approval.
Thank you. Congratulations and welcome to Medford Square and our business community.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
$17,080 petition by Jean Martin, 10 Cumming Street, Medford, Mass. to address the City Council about requirements for the fire departments. Name and address for the record, please.
Jean Martin, 10 Cumming Street. Thank you. In all fairness, this problem isn't the fault of the current mayor, but it is her bullet to bite, and the city's as well. I appreciate that she is taking this issue as seriously as it needs to be. Lack of building maintenance caused all of our facilities to collapse. As you recall, we got the new schools for free, and that spoiled us. Credit goes to this city council for bringing light to the DPW. It was rebuilt for about $14 million. And again, this council started pushing for a new police department, which was assumed to go hand in hand with the fire department, or headquarters. But remember, a mayor can do nothing without the express consent of the people, even when that consent comes in the form of silence. We allow our government to do what it wants through our voice of complaint or through our omission of responsibility. The people themselves have started demanding a new station since becoming aware of the unacceptable conditions of the current facility. So I would like to thank the citizens of Medford for they will be footing the bill for this expensive, and I know that expense, and that I know life in Medford will improve as a result, so thank you. Without a police force, civil order would break down into chaos. As I have stated before, police are the second priority only to that of the governing body, and the DPW is third. For without clear road access between private and public property lines, a complete halt to all community commerce would cease. All community activity as well. Without a police, that's it. While the history of the fire department generally started out as an all-volunteer force, they have grown, not only in scope, but in professionalism. I will attempt here to let them speak for themselves through the Cincinnati force, and I shortened it. Emergency response. Emergency response calls can come at any time of the day or night and must be responded to immediately. Sleep may be frequently interrupted. Emergency calls can cover many things: brush fires, structural fires, automobile accidents, life-threatening medical emergencies, non-life-threatening medical emergencies, false alarms, and other hazardous situations. All must be responded to with the same speed and professionalism. Firefighters must immediately evaluate each emergency situation upon arrival, including properties of the fire, probability of the fire spreading, needs of victims, medical conditions, effects of weather conditions, etc., in order to effectively deal with the emergency. Fire scenes. Firefighting is a dangerous occupation. Firefighters must enter burning structures. Once inside the structure, firefighters must search for victims, the source of the fire, and ways to extinguish the fire. In this process, firefighters are exposed to extreme heat, smoke, fumes, and structural damages. Firefighting is very physically demanding. Firefighters carry 80 to 100 pounds of equipment, such as hoses, axes, ladders, chainsaws, and extinguishers, into and around the fire scene to rescue victims and extinguish the fire. This may include climbing many flights of stairs. Firefighters make forced entries into grounds, structures by cutting locks, breaking doors, windows, or roofs as needed to gain access to or ventilated structures. This may involve using hand tools such as axes, sledgehammers, battering rams, and power tools. Firefighters use ladders and work at heights to rescue victims and fight fires. They must raise, lower, rotate, and exit and extend these ladders. Ladders are at times used for purposes other than climbing, such as bridges, battering rams, and carrying victims. Firefighters occasionally are overcome with smoke and are burned while putting out fires. Emergency medical treatment. Firefighters now perform the tasks previously done by paramedics. Ordinarily, firefighters will canvass for volunteers to perform paramedic duties. However, firefighters may also be assigned to these duties. All firefighters are required to qualify as emergency medical technicians as a condition of probation. Firefighters must assess a victim's general condition by checking pulse, respiration, breathing, and consciousness, etc. This will require physical contact with the victims, who will often be bleeding from open wounds and/or have broken bones and other severe injuries. Firefighters must use first aid and emergency medical techniques to treat victims to the best of their ability. Firefighters may also come into contact with victims who have died before they could be rescued. Sometimes, too, victims will die despite the best efforts of firefighters. Firefighter, paramedics, and EMTs must obtain specific information from or about the victim, load the victim into the ambulance, stabilize the victim to the best of their ability, and care for victims on the way to the hospital. In addition, firefighter paramedics must often obtain more extensive information, draw blood samples, and discuss the case details with emergency room physicians. Rescue operations. Firefighters use systematic search and search procedures to try to find trapped victims without getting lost or trapped themselves. Firefighters free trap victims from a variety of situations, including car crashes, cave-ins, structure collapses, flood channels, chemical spills, and all kinds of unusual occurrences. Firefighters may be required to use special tools to accomplish a rescue. After locating and freeing the victim, firefighters must determine the safest path of evacuation. Firefighters may be required to lift and/or carry the victim with or without assistance in dangerous situations. Other duties. While not out on call, firefighters must constantly work at keeping the station and equipment in excellent condition. Much of the firefighters' time is spent cleaning and scrubbing living quarters, including floors and restrooms, the fire station and the equipment. Firefighters often come into contact with hazardous and infectious materials. Firefighters conduct inspections for fire code violations. Firefighters may have to educate the general public in fire safety and fire prevention techniques. I'm almost done. Thank you for your patience. Personal considerations. Firefighters work 24 consecutive hours a shifts, living at the station for the entire period. Firefighter shifts are organized on the following schedule: 24 hours on, 48 hours off duty. While on duty, firefighters live and sleep at the station. Firefighters, male and female, sleep in dormitory-style quarters. Most stations do not have any physical barriers separating male and female facilities, including bathing, and toilet areas, and rely on an occupied, not occupied system. Unlike the police department, who are an absolute requirement to ensure domestic tranquility or civil order, a fire department is not necessary. For as long as we are willing to lose lives and property, and that's the key, we don't even have to have one, as long as you're willing to accept that people will die in accidents and in fires. I hope that this city council doesn't agree with that, but it's the truth. Many towns in the United States use nothing more than a voluntary fire department. But if we are going to have a professional fire department, then we need to build the two headquarters together. Why? Logistically, both are first responders. Emergency calls sometimes require both agencies in synchronicity. Both work around the clock. Whether it is a car wreck or a gas leak, both may be required to be on site at the same time. And even if we don't build the headquarters together, certain realities will still have to be faced on behalf of the fire department. 1, a new fire headquarters. 2, their current headquarters is the only place where they can install and use special washers for turnout gear. 3, new training facility, tower. Also of note, Medford's tower is used by other surrounding cities as well. They will lose the current storage for all their apparatus. And 5, if they stay at the current location, a new heating system will have to be purchased, as theirs was in the old police basement. Our mayor has shown good faith by starting the real process to finally building out the long overdue police headquarters. She now has to step up again, just a little more, and add the fire headquarters with it or next to it. And I didn't even get into the whole, the new role of the new role of the fire departments. But anyway, thank you very much for listening and considering my thoughts.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Papers in the hands of the clerk. Offered by Councilor Marks. Be it resolved that parking on Elm Street be discussed. Vice President Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. If anyone that's been around this city for a period of time will know that the issue of parking on Elm Street has been a bone of contention with neighbors for a lot of years. I've spoken recently with several neighbors that live on Elm Street and have been on Elm Street for over 35 years. And they too would agree, for the past 35 years, they have been, as neighbors on residents on Elm Street, have been able to park their vehicle 2 wheels on the sidewalk and 2 wheels on the street. And this has been an accepted practice for probably close to at least the last 10 years at least. And prior to that, it was an accepted practice, Mr. President. When the two wheels are parked on the sidewalk, there was a line drawn, and if any councilor wants to go and check it out, a white line drawn that showed where it allowed at least 4 feet in opening that would allow strollers, wheelchair, or any other accessibility issue to be able to pass by. And that's assuming the car parked with the two wheels on the white line. Last year, July 11th to be specific, DCR sent out a letter, July 11, 2016, to advise residents of Elm Street that they would no longer be able to park half on the sidewalk and half on the street. And they referenced two different Code of Mass regulations, 5.02 and -09 and 5.02-28, which more or less says you can't park in a crosswalk or a sidewalk and no stopping or standing a vehicle, whether occupied or not occupied. And the latter of the two just says that you can't park on parkland, and no person shall stop or stand on parkland, and that even if there's no sign, that you can still enforce it. So the residents that received this notice were quite upset. They immediately got on the line, called their local state rep, Representative Donato. I believe there was an on-site meeting with DCR, Rep. Donato, Mayor Burke, and Chief Sacco, and they walked from Aquavia to Aquavia, how it comes out in a horseshoe, and because most of the impact is those 10 homes between Aquavia and Aquavia, and they felt, and this is DCR at the time, that there were no other circumstances other than to remove the parking because there was an issue with disability and people getting down the road. Now, if you only go a little further up the street on the side of where Wright's Pond is, there's no sidewalk at all. So I guess if you're walking down that area, you have to either walk on the street or cross over to continue your efforts to get to the top or the bottom of Elm Street. So what I did, Mr. President, was I reached out to a number of the residents, and they asked if there was any traffic calming approaches that we can take in the area. I think it might have been Councilor Falco at the time, offered a suggestion about putting a crosswalk. I think it was across from Wright's Pond. Was it Councilor Del Russo? Put a crosswalk across from Wright's Pond. I believe that got denied at the time because the curvature of the road made it very difficult for people to cross there. Recently, there was an electronic speed sign that was installed on Elm Street to help slow down the traffic, Mr. President. And to be quite frank with you, I think people just look at the sign to see how fast they're going and not slow down at all. And my suggestion tonight would be to ask DCR once again, because it's a state road, and also our traffic commission, to get together, Mr. President, because many people that do live on Elm Street, in that particular portion of Elm Street, may have a small driveway, but if you look at their driveways, they're pulling out on a very dangerous curve, first of all. And secondly, because of how their homes are situated, the driveways may be 5.5 to 6 feet wide. So when you pull into the driveway, you can't open your door to get out because there's retaining walls, because the homes are built up in that particular area. And they're being told that they can park on Aquavia and some of the other surrounding streets. But, in a winter like we just had, when there's black ice and so forth, to ask a 75-year-old woman to walk down the hill to go get her car, where she could have parking right in front of her home, that's been working for the past 30 years, to me, is unacceptable, Mr. President. And I think there should be a way around it. When Mayor McGlynn was in office, I think it was back some probably 16 or 18 years ago, he created an agreement with then Commissioner Belfour that allowed residents to park two wheels on the sidewalk and two wheels on the street. Another thing, Mr. President, by allowing people to park, it had a calming effect on other vehicular traffic. And residents are noticing now, because there are no cars parked on the side, that cars are really flying up and down Elm Street because they're unimpeded going up and down. So I would ask, Mr. President, that we send a message to DCR and also to our Traffic Commission to meet again, look at the problem that's facing these 10 homes in particular, because that's what it is, and ask that some solution be arrived at to help accommodate these residents that are paying taxes in this. They may live on a state road, but they're paying taxes in this community. And I believe, Mr. President, that they should have the right to park in front of their home on that street, and would ask that we send a message to the Traffic Commission and DCR. I just want to thank Representative Donato.
Do you think we should send a message to him also?
Well, I know he's been out there. He personally went up to homes. He personally made sure that when they did come out with the agreement that allowed them to park on the sidewalks, because he was instrumental in that the residents adhered to parking on the white line, which allowed access on the sidewalk. And he actually went up to homes where the cars were parked a little further off and knocked the door. So he has done a lot of work in allowing residents the opportunity to park there, Mr. President. And maybe if we looked at, maybe the winter months, maybe from November to February, we allow residents to park on that area. And then they have to walk in the nicer months to one of the surrounding streets and park. But there's got to be a compromise. I don't know why we can't compromise on this, Mr. President, on behalf of the residents of Elm Street.
Thank you. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much, and thank you, Councilor Marks, for bringing this topic up. As I think back to my time working in Senator Shannon's office, which ended back in '05, this very same issue was something that would pop up now and again, but not quite often, because the state delegation did have tremendous luck in negotiating on behalf of the residents to ensure that parking was still allowed in that area, Mr. President. Councilor Marks hit the nail on the head. I think that this is really a simple issue. Let the practice continue as it does. We've made some accommodations, some negotiation to determine that this is what can be done to help the residents in the neighborhood. They've grown accustomed to it, and I don't think it's hurting anybody, Mr. President. So with that being said, I'd like to thank Councilor Marks for bringing this issue up. It certainly brings back some great memories of 15 years ago working in the State House and having the same topic come up, and it was addressed, Mr. President. It was addressed successfully. So I think that cooler heads will prevail at the end of the day, and this is something that can be worked out. I thank him for bringing this resolution forward, and I wholeheartedly support it. Move for a second.
Thank you. On the motion by Councilor Marks, that the Traffic Commission, DCR, and the city meet to resolve some type of resolution to the parking problem there, and if we could all CC Representative Donato on the issue and any help that he could be with this also.
And our state senator.
And our state senator, Senator Jim.
And also, if we can offer the compromise, Mr. President, maybe during the winter months to allow parking there, because that seems to be the issue that I've heard from residents, that they're concerned about walking down a hill in icy weather, and I can't blame them.
Thank you.
It's not far, but it's enough to be of concern.
That we at least, and that we will at least allow parking during the winter months. So the motion by Councilor Marks, seconded by Councilor Knight. All those in favor? Aye. Oh, hold on. Councilor Longo-Kern.
If you could just also add at the end, as long as they park so that a wheelchair or...
To meet the handicap accessible
Right, correct. As long as, I think that's always been how it is, but if we just add that language to the end so we make sure all our bases are
Thank you,
covered.
Councilor Longo-Kern. On the motion by Councilor Marks, seconded by Councilor Knight. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Offered by President Caraviello, be it resolved that the Medford City Council commend and congratulate Cheryl Delafano on her recent selection as Citizen of the Year by the Medford Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. Cheryl was selected this week, and for her work that she's done in this community with people with children that have had problems. And again, if you know Cheryl, I've known Cheryl for many, many years, and her and her family, they're good people, and she's done a lot of work to help a lot of families. I thank her for her work and congratulate her. Councilor Della Russo.
I've known Cheryl and Bobby for a long time too, and I love Cheryl. Congratulations.
Thank you. Councilor Longo-Kern.
I just move approval of your paper. I've known Cheryl myself as well, and what it surprises me. I'm very happy to hear her name tonight. I was unaware that she was selected as Citizen of the Year, but I'm very happy to hear that. usually Citizens of the Year, it's for different reasons,
Yep.
and what she does for this community and those with substance abuse and parents of children with substance abuse and the anonymous classes she runs is
Her and Bobby,
amazing.
they're good people, they deserve the award. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much, and I'd like to just piggyback a little bit on what Councilor Longo-Kern says, because I think it's very important that we point out why Cheryl was selected to be Citizen of the Year. It's no secret that there's an opiate epidemic in Massachusetts and that Medford is not immune to it. And Ms. Delfano has really dedicated the majority of the last year and more helping those families in need, whether it be providing services to get into rehabilitation clinics for the children, or to provide family counseling services to let people know where they can get help to learn how to cope with this issue that affects families across the country, across the community, across the state. Mr. President, I really commend her work. She's taking on a very difficult undertaking. It's something that gets very emotional for families, and this type of guidance is very, very, very necessary in order for families to be able to cope and overcome some of the issues that come along with opiate addiction. I had the opportunity of attending one of the community police meetings, and I was very surprised to hear that I believe the figures were 107 times in 2016 that Narcan was administered for what would be suspected as opiate overdoses, Mr. President, with a mortality of 19 individuals passing away in our community in 2016 for what is suspected to be opiate-related deaths. So with that being said, Mr. President, that's more than 10% of the individuals that are receiving a dose of Narcan are eventually passing away from this disease. So we need more people in our community like Cheryl, and I thank her for her work and congratulate her.
Thank you. And Mr. Clerk, if we could arrange for a citation for her that could be handed out on the night of her receiving the honor, it will be appreciated. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. The records. Councilor Knight.
Last week, we adopted a committee report for the Zoning and Ordinance Subcommittee, Mr. President, that called for two meetings. It called for a meeting on 2/17 and a meeting on 2/13 and a meeting on 2/20. The 2/13 meeting was canceled due to snow, and the 2/27 meeting, Mr. President, has been canceled due to the fact that we are going to be having our committee of the whole meeting relative to the funding proposal for the police station.
Yes,
so I just wanted individuals in the community to be aware that those two meetings are canceled.
Thank you, Councilor Knight. Tomorrow evening, there will be a meeting in the Council of the Whole in regards to the bond issue. And there'll also be a meeting on Monday, the 27th, which the mayor and her staff will be in attendance, and also in regards to the bond issue regarding the police station. Thank you. The records of the meeting were passed to Councilor Della Russo. Councilor Della Russo, how have you found those records?
Mr. President, due to my ill state, I'm unable to read them in great detail, so I ask that they be deferred to next week, that they be tabled.
On the motion that the records be tabled, as Councilor Della Russo is not feeling well this evening, until next week, all those in favor? Motion by Councilor Scarpelli to adjourn, seconded by Councilor Falco. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.